Welcome, everyone, to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. Stefanos Tsitsipas is an ATP 500 champion. After losing in the final at that level previously 11 times, he gets over the hump. He wins Dubai 2025, beating Felix Auger-Aliassime in a clean, swift 6-3, 6-3 performance on Championship Sunday to rob FAA of what would have been his third title this year already. There is so much to get into in regards to Tsitsipas and the week we just witnessed, which is why I am particularly excited for this week's episode of Monday Match Analysis. I will also hit on Acapulco, where Tomas Machac won his maiden ATP final, beating Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. I'll be shorter on Acapulco, but I will get to it towards the end. I've noticed a theme in February. With all the success that we've seen from, Tsitsipas with this breakthrough, Felix Auger-Aliassime with a terrific start to 2025 as a whole, but really good in the month of February in particular, Davidovich Fokina making two finals in back-to-back weeks, and Denis Shapovalov winning Dallas a few weeks back. What have we seen in February? We've seen these ultra-talented players who've hit some speed bumps where the narrative started to get very negative with all of them. Are they finished forever? Is it over? Are they never going to be back? I don't know. If we're going to take something from February, it's that talent and ability usually sorts itself out. Don't give up on talent quickly, because they've all been phenomenal. And that's, to me, the theme of February 2025. You shouldn't give up on your own talent either, but I know one of the hardest things to do is find a coach and get tennis lessons. It can be intimidating, but Player Court has developed a network of over 4,000 highly rated coaches nationwide, and as winter wraps up, their coaches are raising the price of lessons starting March 10th. That is why I am telling you right now to take advantage of these lower rates, and by using my link, you can get an additional $35 off. So I will put the link in the description and in the pinned comment on YouTube so you can take advantage of Player Court's network of coaches. Let us now get to the analysis of Tsitsipas over Auger-Aliassime. And I know where everybody is going to start here, with the racket and potentially the backhand. And I'll get to those things. But I'm not going to start there because I disagree. I disagree with the idea that his backhand was the key to winning this final. Now, I know it was really good all week. Again, I'm not going to ignore it, but I do want to make the point, one that I feel very strongly about, that the strengths of Stefanos Tsitsipas have dictated his successes and his failures more often than not, because his strengths, when at their best, can be oh so dominating. And that is what wins him most of his matches, not his weaknesses. FAA and Stefanos Tsitsipas are similar players. They have really great attacking forehands. They have excellent first serves. They have weaker backhands. So this matchup is always going to be about who can earn more attacking forehands, who can hide the backhand more effectively. And I think the two main ways you do that, is one, serve well, and two, hit enough quality backhands to actually find the ball back onto your forehand. But it's really the former, not the latter, that I thought played such a big role for Stefanos Tsitsipas in this match. And I know I've started this with an opinion. I said, my opinion is that his backhand was not the reason why he beat FAA. Let me give you some facts. At 1-2 in the first set, Tsitsipas faced two break points. He hit an ace. He hit a wide serve plus two great forehands and a put-away volley. Then he hit a service winner. Then he hit another service winner. All right, so he hit first serves and forehands. He didn't need to hit a single backhand after 15-40 in that service game to get out of the jam. And that is going to be a theme that you'll notice as I continue through the key points on Stefanos Tsitsipas' serve in this match. Because at 4-3 in the first set, Tsitsipas was down Love 30, a chance for Felix to break right back and get back on level terms in the opening frame. I'm not going to go through every point because Tsitsipas did make a couple of forehand errors here, and this game actually went to deuce. But from love 30, I can tell you this, from love 30, Tsitsipas played 8 points and ended up winning this service game. He hit 0 backhands. He did not hit a backhand. 8 points. And he held. He faced 2 more break points at 1-all in the second. He did not hit a backhand on either of those break points. Not one single backhand. At 2-all, 30-all, didn't hit a backhand. He won the next 2 points to hold his serve. Yeah. So how is this possible? I'm telling you, in a sample size of 16 points that I just told you about, which is a large sample size, and not just any random sample of 16 points, I'm looking at the most high leverage situations in this match on the Tsitsipas serve. And I'm telling you, in that sample of points, Tsitsipas did not hit a single backhand. How is that possible? It's possible for 3 reasons. The first is that Steph's serve is excellent. It is a weapon, and his ability to damage his opponent with the first serve makes it so that he's generally hitting, at the very least, a first ball forehand. I thought his rhythm and his timing and his balance on serve was on point throughout this match. He faced 7 break points. He made first serves on all 7. That is clutch stuff. That's the kind of stuff that we saw regularly in Tsitsipas's best years. The second aspect of this is that his runaround footwork is as powerful and as rapid as anybody's. So you will often see balls come into the ad side on Tsitsipas's side of the court, balls that most players would have to take as a backhand. And Steph is so good laterally that he creates a forehand. So the rapidness of his footwork protects his backhand. The third ingredient is that when he does have a finishing opportunity on his forehand, he is so deadly from these positions that he prevents the point from ever getting neutralized and developing further. Because once the point is neutralized, once the point develops into a neutral baseline rally, you're giving your opponent opportunities to then get the ball onto your backhand. But Tsitsipas so often terminates the point, does point-ending damage when he has that first forehand look. So he doesn't let his opponent get into the rally. Therefore, when he hits the good first serve, when he finds the first ball forehand because he hit the good first serve, well, now what takes over is his ability to steal time with his positioning. His accuracy on the forehand is 10 out of 10. His power is an 8 or a 9. And he has transition threat. So even if you do have the ability to maybe float a ball back defensively, he's often at the net. So good luck defending. You better hit a passing shot, which is even harder to pull off. So it's those 3 things in tandem. When Tsitsipas is at his best, it's very difficult to even get his backhand into play. You basically have to be an elite returner in order to do it. Felix is not that. And that is why I will challenge the idea that Tsitsipas's backhand is the first thing we should talk about when we look at how he beat Felix here. Because for me, it was his serve and his forehand. That's why he wins matches. That's why he won this match, especially in quicker hard court conditions, where when he's at his best, his offense can be overwhelming. Let's kind of deep dive one other game here. As I mentioned, it's supposed to be the same equation for Felix. Felix has everything I just talked about with Tsitsipas. Felix basically has that as well. A really deadly first serve, quick runaround footwork, and an ability to terminate points when he has attacking opportunities on his forehand. Transition game isn't quite as good. To me, the forehand is more error-prone than Tsitsipas's, but essentially it's the same idea. So let's look at the 3-all game, which was the first break of serve in this match from Stefanos Tsitsipas. And the question I'm always asking is, are you forcing Tsitsipas to come up with first serve returns on his backhand? And if you repeatedly ask that question, usually you're in a decent position against Tsitsipas, even though his backhand return was a lot better than we've seen it for, at this tournament compared to what we've seen as of late. But Felix was up 40-love in this game. And frankly, up until this point, he was probably getting the better of play, applying a little bit more pressure on the Tsitsipas serve, holding a little bit more easily. 40-love, Felix misses his first serve. Tsitsipas hits a great backhand slice cross-court, short angle. Felix tries to go down the line off the next backhand, and now Tsitsipas has an opportunity to hit a lightly running forehand cross-court, and he forces an error. So in this case, how did Tsitsipas earn an opportunity with his forehand? Because he hit a good backhand. Hit a high-quality backhand, in this case, a slice. Now it's 40-15. Felix double faults. Now it's 40-30. FAA hits a body serve. Tsitsipas slides out of the way and hits a forehand return hard down the middle. Felix jammed runaround on the +1. It goes wide for an unforced error. So that's a forehand return there from Tsitsipas. Deuce. Great backhand return by Tsitsipas, although it was a pretty bad location on the first serve by Felix. It still did. It was a first serve and it went into the backhand. So it meets that criteria. And Tsitsipas, he connected. Center of the strings, lots of pace, hard drive return, forehand inside out, forced error on the next ball. Again, what earned the forehand? What earned the attacking forehand? A great backhand return. Now it's break point. Felix serves into Tsitsipas's forehand. Stefanos makes a stretch return. FAA misses the +1 forehand inside in wide for an attacking unforced error. Pretty bad error there. But when you look back at it, there's 2 points I want to hit on because I thought this was the turning point in the match ultimately. The first is that Felix made Tsitsipas hit one first serve backhand return from up 40-love, and he got broken, which to me is not enough. And the second thing is Tsitsipas earned 2 attacking forehands by hitting good backhands. And that's what this matchup is always going to be about. Zooming out, big picture, let's talk about the racket. So first off, what was the reasoning? Why did Tsitsipas change his racket? Well, he said that because of the conditions slowing down, he cited courts and balls. He felt he needed to adapt. Now, that reasoning, in a way, is easy to poke holes in because you would obviously say, well, Stefanos, you've always performed better in slow conditions, right? Your best tournament is the slowest court on the tour, Monte Carlo. Obviously, your best surface has been clay. Now, height of bounce is a factor here, and I think the higher bounce favors Tsitsipas in a lot of ways, so it's not just speed. But still, you would think if the overall trend on tour was things are slowing down, you'd think Tsitsipas would like that, not feel like, oh, I'm at a disadvantage now. I better adapt. But that said, as I talked about at the top, I do believe that a big part of Tsitsipas's game is being deadly on the first serve and the forehand. In fact, not just a big part, the biggest part of Tsitsipas's game is being deadly on the first serve and the forehand. So if he felt like with the slowing conditions, he was not dominating enough with those two shots, okay, that makes sense. That's a problem. And by the way, to my eyes, to my observation, Tsitsipas, and I said it all throughout last year, he was not dominating enough with those two shots. So that's his reasoning. Now, the placebo effect is very, very real. In fact, it might be unfair to even call it a placebo effect because undoubtedly, when you make a change like this, you get a little bit of a jolt. You get freshness. Tsitsipas talked about this. And I think it's a big deal. It's part of the reason why I think the greats are obsessed with tinkering. I think the big three were obsessed with tinkering. From what I've seen early on from Alcaraz and Sinner, they're pretty obsessed with tinkering. I think when you wake up and you want to be inspired to train, you want to be inspired to play matches, part of what ideally keeps you excited about the game, excited about training, is your development and getting better. And that involves changing stuff. And Tsitsipas said that the racket change has added some freshness and some excitement. He might have been feeling a little bit stale. And in that sense, I really encourage everybody to think about a racket change like this beyond the technical side of it of, oh, you're going to change the specs, so that's going to be the effect. I think there are often larger things at play psychologically. And I did joke, with the Madison Keys thing, 2 players endorsing the Wilson blade, leaving the Wilson blade. And right now, if you look at their combined record post-Wilson blade, there's a 0 in the loss column in 2025 between Keys and Tsitsipas. Now, as we get into the real specifics of what this is and what it could have done, I defer to people who are smarter than me. 3, 2. Now, most of the speculation is that Tsitsipas has switched to a Babolat Pure Arrow. The strings are also black. Stefanos normally uses 4G, which is kind of a dark yellow string. So it basically looks kind of like Alcaraz's setup. Well, Tennis Connected on X reported that Tsitsipas hit with Alcaraz last fall, loved the Babolat Pure Arrow 98, so we decided to buy some and try it this week. Blacked out with RPM Team string. So if that reporting is all true, it's quite the story. 16 by 20 string pattern, which is not as dense as what Tsitsipas has used in the past. I'm quite confident, although I haven't verified this, I'm quite confident the Pure Arrow is a much stiffer frame than what Tsitsipas would have been using, which would offer him more power. So more open string pattern, stiffer racket, basically gives you a more powerful and spin-friendly weapon. You sacrifice control with those two things, but you improve you get more out of the racket. You get more power, and damage should come a little bit easier. Matthew Willis got some data from Tennis Insights. This has been widely shared, I know already, but it found that Tsitsipas's 52-week average on his backhand was 72 miles per hour, both down the line and cross court. In Dubai, it was 75 miles per hour down the line, 74 miles per hour cross court, with actually lower RPM, which means he was flattening it out more, and on average, he was hitting a bit closer to the lines. So the data, just the hard data, would suggest that Tsitsipas was able to achieve more quality on his one-handed backhand. To my eyes, the big change was that Tsitsipas was able to center the ball more often. He was just hitting cleaner. And if you don't feel like you need to swing as hard, in order to make the ball go, in order to get the penetration and the pace that you want, you're gonna be more balanced. Your head is going to stay more still. You're going to be more relaxed in the important muscles from the wrist to the shoulder. It stands to reason, if you're letting the racket do more of the work, you have the ability to hit the ball a bit cleaner. You get into trouble when you start snatching at the ball, when you're trying to muscle the ball, when you're insecure about how the ball is coming off your strings, if there's going to be enough on it. This was particularly evident on the return, where I saw Tsitsipas oftentimes shorten up the swing, just stay really firm at contact, and use the incoming pace and the technology in his racket to redirect these drive returns and get a lot of steam on it coming back and catch the return clean and hit it flush, which was often the missing piece when Tsitsipas tried to drive his backhand returns. So there was absolutely superior backhand performance throughout this week in Dubai than what we'd been seeing as of late. And the significance of this title is massive. Now, I mentioned the 500 thing at the top. That was just one of the weirdest trends in all of tennis. It made no sense that Tsitsipas was 0-11 lifetime in ATP 500 finals. But the success on outdoor hard court, now that is something that's been concerning. Since the 2023 Australian Open final, big outdoor hard court events have been pretty woeful. He had the one title in Los Cabos, which was the 250. Other than that, outside of Los Cabos, he hadn't even made a semifinal on an outdoor hard court since the 2023 Australian Open until Dubai. He was in the Los Cabos semifinal again last year, where he lost to Casper Ruud. But other than that, it's all indoors. Outdoor hard courts, he's not even making semifinals. So that's a trend that, considering the calendar is how it is, and most of the year is played on outdoor hard courts, it was really important, I think, for Tsitsipas to start having more success in these particular conditions. As far as who he beat, this is interesting to assess. On one hand, he played tons of serve talent and tons of offensive talent. From Sonego, Khachanov, a little bit different, but if you look at Sonego and Berrettini and Griekspoor and Auger-Aliassime, these are above average first serves. These are guys who play well in quick conditions where their offensive weaponry can finish points quickly. And knowing that Tsitsipas has struggled in the past to neutralize the serve firepower in quick conditions, because players like that, from Griekspoor, who just serves and volleys against a weak backhand return, or Berrettini, who has the serve +1 against a weaker backhand return, knowing that Tsitsipas in the past, especially in outdoor hard court, has struggled against those types of opponents, it bodes very well that Stefanos was able to overcome those challenges. On the other hand, if you look at the historic elements of these head-to-heads, you can flip it around and say, well, Tsitsipas has actually really loved playing all of these guys. And on paper, he actually had favorable matchups throughout this week. Sonego, he's 4-0 against, which is not necessarily surprising because Tsitsipas is just a superior player to Lorenzo Sonego. Khachanov, though, 9-1. Tsitsipas is 9-1 against Khachanov. So there's clearly a matchup thing there. Berrettini, 4-1 to Tsitsipas. Griekspoor, he's 3-0. And Tsitsipas had just beaten Talon at Talon's best event and his favorite event, Rotterdam, just a couple weeks ago. So he would have come into that matchup and thinking, okay, if I just beat Griekspoor in the place where he plays by far his best tennis, I'm feeling pretty good about taking him on in Dubai. Auger-Aliassime is an interesting one. Overall head-to-head, 6-3. But since 2020, Steph has won 6 of the last 7. That has been another matchup that Tsitsipas has handled quite well. Tsitsipas back into the top 10. I think if he can get out of Monte Carlo and defend those 1,000 points, inside or still around the top 10, he'll feel amazing about where he's at. And that is likely going to depend on how well he plays at the Sunshine Double. And I'm very intrigued to see what it looks like, because Tsitsipas historically has been, by his standards, pretty brutal at Indian Wells and Miami. Quick word on Felix before we wrap things up and move on to Acapulco. I thought in this final, and by the way, I've said a lot about Auger-Aliassime that I'm just not going to repeat. You can even check out my Instagram at Gill Gross _, where I made a recent reel on the improvements that Auger-Aliassime has made as of late. But for me in this final, the top end first serves were lacking. So again, whenever I look at this matchup, it's just about who is going to earn the forehands and earn the cheap points, whether that be with the first serve or the ability to hit strong backhands cross court. The latter, which I don't think was really a massive key as much as I think it sometimes would be. But for FAA, I just didn't think the top end first serves were there. The forehand was somewhat error prone as well. I don't think that shot, I don't think it was a terrible day, but average at best. He was going to need to be a little bit more reliable off of that wing. And tactically, there is one thing I didn't get from Felix. There's one area that I just thought, what are you thinking? And that is how much he went inside in with his forehand. I did not understand this at all. And one of them came up on one of the biggest points of the match. I've told you about 6 break points already, but in the match there were 7. On one of the break points, Tsitsipas actually did hit a backhand, because Felix made a good first serve return with his backhand and actually found Stefanos' backhand off the first ball. Tsitsipas patiently traded it cross court. And then Felix hit a backhand cross court that was not very good. For the rest of the point, Tsitsipas did not hit another backhand. So he hit one. He could have had to hit more, but FAA had a runaround forehand, and he went inside in right away on the first one. I saw this a lot from Felix, going inside in on the first runaround. And to me, against Felix, you only go inside in if you know you can do serious damage against Tsitsipas. If you're not going to be able to stretch him out, knock him off balance, severely disrupt his contact point, why are we going inside in? Tsitsipas's running forehand is elite. It is so good. He is going to burn you into the open court if you go inside in into his forehand and give him open court into the cross, into your deuce side. Why not hit the ball deep, heavy, hard into the backhand? Tsitsipas does not have that redirect backhand down the line that you have to worry about against, let's say, a Daniil Medvedev or a Novak Djokovic. So you go inside out all day until you have a ball that you know you can hit inside in with serious intention. Then you go inside in. When you have a weak ball, when you have Tsitsipas's position compromised. But what I saw far too often from Felix in this match was inside in off the first ball, instead of working the point on the ad side with the runaround forehands. I think that's a huge mistake, and this was a really unwise forehand inside in decision from Felix on this 7th and final break point. And what ended up happening, he goes inside in on the first runaround, and then Tsitsipas hits a running forehand cross court, and now FAA is, of course, on the run to his forehand, and he misses. He does not have the same level on his running forehand that Tsitsipas does. So that is all. Let's go to Acapulco. I'm going to do this notebook dump style. First of all, Machac has been playing top 20 level tennis easily for the last 6 months. And it was only a matter of time until he won a title. In fact, he was the highest ranked player to have not won a title coming into this week. And in my opinion, he was the best player currently to have not won a title coming into this week. So it's good to see him get there. His tennis was awesome. And I will say, overall, in this final, the points were electric. This is incredible stuff. You know, it's the kind of stuff that gets you excited about the modern game and the direction of tennis when you have this level of shot making and athleticism. They're using all parts of the court. They're able to turn points around with their shot making and with their movement like nobody's business. And you have a very, very dynamic brand of tennis between these two. So I just want to give Davidovich Fokina and Machac props on that. The entertainment value of this final was high, albeit in the second set, low drama. And I'll get to that. I'll get to the reasons for that in a moment. Machac got a massive serve bump, which is surprising in these conditions. Acapulco is not all that fast, and Machac is by no means a heavyweight server, but his accuracy was excellent. And I got to dig into the numbers with Davidovich Fokina, but he's not the rangiest returner. So it looked... look, I'll just say this. I was very surprised with how much Mahac's first serve dominated, because Tomas usually does not have that luxury. But the accuracy was really hurting Davidovich Fokina. Another thing that I noticed, Machac really comfortable closing up his stance and moving through the court to take it early. I love the Czech's approach on short balls. I think he's got great recognition. I think he steals time really well. And part of that is the comfort with the closed stance footwork, which is more and more going out of style in the modern game. You see a lot more open stance and three-quarter stance. But if you want to move forward through the shot and gain two advantages. One, take the ball a little bit earlier, and two, transition to the net quicker. The closed stance is very, very handy, and Machac loves that footwork pattern, and I think it makes him extra effective on attacking the short balls, forehand and backhand. Now, most of Mahac's issues recently have been physical hiccups and mental volatility. The level of tennis has been there, and the other stuff just needed to stay out of the way. This was a week and this was a final in which Machac was very level-headed, calm, cool, and collected. We love that alliteration. And he let his tennis do the talking. And Acapulco can be hot and it can be humid. Yes, they do play at night oftentimes, but I think it was admirable to see, and it was a good sign to see Machac also get through in those sorts of conditions. The problem with Davidovich Fokina is that he often does not play percentage tennis under pressure. And look, I think there was some bad luck at play in the Delray Beach final against Kecmanovic. I think he did a lot of things right down the stretch of that match and under pressure, which kind of made Davidovich Fokina somewhat of a sympathetic figure coming out of that final. Certainly the wheels fell off. Certainly there was an absolute breakdown and an absolute collapse at some point. But up until that breaking point, Davidovich Fokina held it together quite nicely and was playing the style of tennis, the smart percentage tennis, using his athleticism in a way that maximizes his abilities. But that's always what you're looking for with Davidovich Fokina. Under pressure, is he going to allow just like the blood rush to his head, and is he going to make dumb choices? Here's what happened in the first set tiebreak at 6-all. Forehand rally. Machac missed his first serve. They got into a forehand rally, and Davidovich Fokina just randomly decided to change down the line, and he missed it wide. He was not trying to attack. I know he wasn't trying to attack because if he were, he would have hit this ball harder. He hit this ball pretty slow and pretty loopy, just wanting to get out of that pattern. But he was playing from below the level of his waist, so it was a low contact point. He was deep behind the baseline. And he's playing a guy in Machac who is one of the most balanced players on tour, forehand, backhand. His backhand, he hits it basically as hard as his forehand. And you can count on one hand how many players that is true about. But when it comes to Machac, you're not necessarily looking to find his backhand. And if this were a matchup, if let's say Davidovich Fokina were playing Tsitsipas, I would have said, look, I get it. You might want to change direction off of that ball because you're trying to get it to the weaker wing on a big point. I get it. But with Machac, it just felt like a random, needless change of direction. You are redirecting for no reason. You have no positional advantage. You do not have a weak incoming ball. The balance was not great on this shot as well. Kind of pulled off of it. So to me, this was stay in the cross-court pattern. Why are we changing? Unnecessary risk to me to change direction. It was almost like he just got bored. He's always wired to change the pattern, and it's like he got bored of keeping the pattern going. It's like he is allergic to hitting 3 cross-court forehands in a row. Sometimes you watch him and it feels like that. At 6-7, facing set point, he missed his first serve at 208 kilometers per hour, 129 miles per hour, out wide. So it's a little bit easier to hit big pace up the tee. You got lower part of the net. That's the main reason. Out wide for a righty on the ad side, that is the hardest and most low percentage serve to hit, especially when you're hitting it as a flat serve. So Davidovich Fokina went flat serve out wide, ad side at 129, which is at least 4 miles per hour, probably 5 miles per hour above his average first serve speed. Again, why are we going for more on the first serve under pressure? Why are we doing that? Why are we going for the most low percentage serve under pressure? Again, there is something in his mind that tells him, I'm feeling stress. Okay, all out aggression. Like that is what happens with him, and it's often counterproductive. He misses his first serve. On the second serve, his feet get stuck on a first ball backhand. The positioning is bad. He's reaching for it. It goes long for an unforced error. He loses the first set. So, again, what I want to see him maybe try to do, because I've seen this before, hit your regular first serve on a big point. Obviously, there's the famous Wimbledon incident, 8-all, he goes underarm, right? He needs to try to get himself to hit his regular serve, not go for more in the big spot. And lastly, in the second set, Fokina got frustrated after going down a break, and he turned into an all-out ball basher, which was not ideal. His emotions took over. He lost all sense of consistency and percentage tennis, and he just started to crush the ball, take his anger out on the tennis ball. And he became an error machine, and the match was over in a snap once that happened. He did not make Machac feel pressure serving out his first career title, and that is also regrettable if you're Davidovich Fokina. But it's not all negative, obviously, for ADF. He's found himself in 2 finals in back-to-back weeks. He's playing really good tennis. He's on his way back up. Seemingly, there's a lot of positives to take away, but that's to me what I saw in the final. And that concludes the Acapulco notebook dump. That concludes Monday Match Analysis. Indian Wells draw out tomorrow. Can't wait to go quarter by quarter with the preview. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.